The Idol is done, and we just had a genuinely excellent hour of television. I think this show pulled off like a genuinely great finale almost out of nowhere. The show has been on a steady improvement curve since it started. I think this episode genuinely solidified it as a solid show and something you can probably recommend as long as people can handle its content. Before I continue and jump into everything that happens this episode, I'd love if you could subscribe, and I've also got a song coming out. If you could pre-save that, that'd be fantastic. So this episode starts with this like extended sequence of the cult basically showing off all the music they've made to Jocelyn and her team.
And I need to talk to you about it face to face.
What the fuck is this? It's a little weird.
This is weird even by music business standards.
It's a genuinely great sequence. I love the merging of these two worlds. So far we've seen the cult on one side and then Jocelyn's team on the other side, and actually seeing them connect and almost butt heads, particularly when Tedros goes against Nikki, is like really exciting and captivating to watch. Genuinely like a really good sequence.
You know, you're just a fucking TikTok obsessed fucking algorithm cunt.
There are so many great quotables coming from Finkelstein, which is Eli Roth's character, about sort of how uncomfortable the cult is. References to Charles Manson and the boy from Deliverance. That's a great line, all right? The suggestion that like they're essentially in a Deliverance type situation. If you haven't seen that movie, Google it, but it's really good. It's great. He's basically saying, yeah, talented people can be murderers too. Like, this doesn't feel right. And that whole sequence as a result has this really great sense of tension. You're watching it and you're like, are people going to get murdered? Like, this feels uncomfortable. And the tension is really well done. It reminds me of the ending sequence of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you're watching these cult members that are just hypnotized kind of invade these lush, lavish houses.
And I'm here to do the devil's business.
No, it was dumber than that. Something like Rex.
God, shoot him, Tex!
Tex!
You know, you almost get a sense of like imposter syndrome from the outside, where you're like, maybe there's a reason these people aren't in these gated communities, and it starts feeling really uncomfortable. I think also the payoff that the music is actually really good, and watching all these performers do their thing and slowly win the team over, it does make for a really interesting sequence. I also really love the conversation that Tedros has with Nikki, where she's basically saying, I know this was all you. This isn't fucking Jocelyn. Her team thinks it's Jocelyn, but I know this was you.
You did this? You did this?
Yeah, this is...
I mean, it's amazing.
You may not believe it, but she's trying to take all the credit for it, but these are my babies.
I can see it. I know it's you.
It's this really interesting turn that the story takes, where Tedros has been really abusive and manipulative, but he's gotten results. And in the last episode, it did heavily infer that Jocelyn also has been really abusive to Xander, Troye Sivan's character. So your morality and who you actually side with and who the episode wants you to side with at this point isn't actually crystal clear. It's actually quite sort of like, that's a good point from Nikki. That's also a good point from Jocelyn's team. I don't know who I'm really to side with. Obviously, Tedros has invaded her house and her life with his like fucked up cult, but at the same time, the music that's come out of that is mostly his doing, his assembling. That's what these people, and that's why Haim and Finkelstein and Nikki are all really impressed. They are, because he has done something miraculous, which is kind of the big sort of culmination of everything that this show has been setting up until this point. It's sort of been this idea of like, is the pain, is the torture, is all this fucked up stuff he's bringing into Jocelyn's life worth it? And on top of that, in the last episode, it was heavily hinting that Jocelyn might also be not only willing to engage in this stuff, it also suggested in the last episode that not only is Jocelyn willing to participate in these abusive behaviors, but she's actually willing to encourage it and inflict it on others.
Fucking years that this bitch has taken from me. The fucking career that I could have had, the life that I could have had.
He's lying.
She fucking controls everything around her and everyone. And now she's doing it to you.
Yeah, I thought that whole sequence with the label and with Jocelyn's team kind of merging worlds with Tedros and his crew and his cult was really fun to watch. There's something really sort of uncomfortable, sinister, and fucked up in the air watching these people that are worth millions sort of risk their lives potentially to just see what is in store. I thought it was a really captivating sequence, and I actually had no idea where the episode was going to go from that point. I genuinely thought people might die if they didn't like the music. Like, I was really, really into it. There was this weird feeling watching the start of this episode, knowing how critical like Gen Z and young people and old people, whatever, have been to this show. It felt really bizarre watching just how good this last episode was, because I was like, are they going to double back? Like, we've seen sort of these people that have done these video essays as the show's gone on sort of soften out. I did a video talking about D'Angelo's review of episode 1 and how overly harsh he was, but he's done a follow-up on episode 2 and 3, and in that one, he's actually kind of giving the show credit for a large majority of the time. Like, I don't think you could show anyone this episode and have them think it's flat out a terrible show. I think it looks too good. It's genuinely well written and funny and engaging in that whole sort of sequence I've highlighted so far. And on top of that, like, it all kind of comes together in a really satisfying way. And the reason I say that is because what this episode really explores are the power dynamics of an abusive relationship. Who is in control?
Jocelyn is a very strategic and calculated person. She knows exactly what she wants, and she's gonna stop at nothing to get it.
You're gonna kick out your only source of inspiration?
Well, you've served your purpose. What we realize at the end is that Tedros was her muse and that she got what she needed out of him.
It is kind of the big reveal and big sort of surprise of this season is just how powerful and in control and calculated she is. And we sort of see that play out in a visual metaphor when Tedros shows up at her concert at the end. I think what that is showing is that she never directly messaged him. She said she wanted him out of the house. She got her security to like remove him off the premises and like potentially threaten his life. And she just instinctually knew that he was going to show up and sort of almost like a pet just wander the world to get back to her.
He fucking sold out the stadium in a weird way. So maybe, you know, we should send him a t-shirt. Fucking Holly saw a thing.
Will you please join us? I want you to meet my family.
So who is really in control here? That was the point. We know that she hasn't spoken to him since. And she is essentially like toying with him to be like, I'm in control now and we're going to do this together. You got me here. You were my muse, as they say in the inside the episode. But now you're under my control and that's how it's going to be. I've taken your family. You are part of my family. That was sort of her speech at the end. So yeah, I just loved the sequence of Tedros almost like roaming the streets like a lost puppy and just praying that she had tickets set aside for him. I would almost assume that all the toying that happens to him on the way to get to the stage was actually intentional from her. Everything from choosing Maurice Jackson rather than Tedros, so he gets a bit nervous there, to then the bodyguard going, oh, she wants nothing to do with you, she doesn't know who you are, just to let him in. That was probably a joke she asked them to do. It feels like she knew on a gut level that he was going to crawl and beg and grovel to come back to her. And I love that when he comes onto that stage, it is a world and an environment that he's only been sort of a guest in. He has tried to be famous, you know. Jocelyn's crew, the label, are like mocking his efforts to make rap music videos, and who does he really think he is? He's just a pathetic club owner. They mock that, all right? He wants to be famous so bad, but he doesn't have any of the talent, and Jocelyn's now playing on that. Jump through all these hoops now. I know what you want. You want to be part of this world that I've been in since I was a child. I don't know. I enjoyed the bad bitch energy. I enjoyed her taking control and sort of being like, yeah, I can play these games too, and now you're mine. You're subservient to me. That was awesome. Yeah, really, really good. I just thought it was a great episode of sort of everything coming together. I loved Troye Sivan's song. I love kind of the reveal that, yeah, he was this child star. It's going to be a really exciting prospect for them to perform together. Considering how dark, nihilistic, and mean-spirited the show has been at different points, it felt really cool to almost just celebrate music and art and really like have these long sequences and revel in it. And I can't talk about all that without talking about how genuinely fucking good Jocelyn's song Sultry Dance was. And I think the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, it was just like an excellent, captivating sequence. Speaking of Eli Roth, it throws me back to that sequence in Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino with the lap dance. It's the spectacle of like a sexual performance and what that like brings out of people. And I thought it was like a really, really well done sequence. I kind of loved everything about this episode. It was easily the best episode of the season. It felt like they were just firing on all cylinders. And it's interesting because the last video I did, I was saying it feels like they've cut this season short. I don't know if we have enough time to wrap all this stuff up satisfyingly. But this episode felt like a really satisfying movie. Like, it felt really good. And I'm praying that we actually get a season 2. I know Dee has talked about that online, that they're shooting the show for a season 2, but it feels like they've got this initial character work out of the way, this initial exciting hook done. I could do for another 5 episodes of The Idol in a year. I thought it was genuinely a great last episode, and I think it pulls up a lot of what the season has been doing up until this point. I think on rewatch, this show would feel a lot better from the jump, knowing where it goes, knowing that Ted Roast is meant to be a joke. Like, this episode really sort of solidifies that. They are mocking him. They are dragging him. He is sweaty. He is ugly. He is uncomfortable. They make fun of his attempted music career. They make fun of just like his whole aura in general. Everyone's been mean to Ted Roast, and it kind of solidifies what The Weeknd was saying in those articles, that he's not meant to be sexy. He's meant to be a bit of a goofball.
He knew this like random backup dancer of mine, and he saw that I followed her on Instagram, and he'd been like obsessed with me for years, like back when he was in prison and stuff. And he had her like bring me to his club, and then he pointed me out on the dance floor, and he's like, "Is that Jocelyn? Oh
That's
my
not
God,
true.
you're here." It is true.
That's not fucking true.
Yeah, and it was this whole fucking setup. This whole time, he had this crazy fucking plan, and it worked.
Fuck you, Jocelyn.
It worked.
Super elation.
Fuck you, Mike.
He's meant to be the embodiment of imposter syndrome, right? He is meant to feel weird and uncomfortable and out of place, and like he's almost got it, but not quite. You know, it's like when Kendall Roy in Succession used to try be hip and youth and cool. It's like you're almost there, buddy, but not quite.
I just wanted to get the gang together early in my tenure to say, yo.
L to the OG, dude be the OG, and he playing like a pro, see, L to the OG.
And yeah, I just thought the power play that Jocelyn pulled off, never contacting him again and just letting him come to her and jump through all the hoops to get there, was really exciting. I also loved the crowd's reaction in the audience. Now, fun fact, it recently got posted on Reddit that they actually shot Jocelyn's sequence at a Weeknd concert.
Jocelyn's supposed to go out and she's delivered this little speech there. We would basically shoot this with the live audience of 70,000 people. We had 2 takes to do it. We had the Friday night and the Saturday night of the concert. Either we get it or we don't.
I was nervous about going out there for sure, but I just tried to put my Jocelyn hat on and be in character.
So it was really cool to see like Eli Roth and all these people in the audience. I thought Hank Azaria's character was excellent this episode. I don't think that the Little Red Riding Hood story that he tells Ted Roast is really that powerful. It's very on the nose.
He's the big bad wolf, asleep on the grandma's bed. I mean, like he fucking owns the house. He can't believe it. So, he takes his shotgun, yeah? Sticks it right between the wolf's eyes, and he's just about to pull the trigger. He's gonna do it, and he stops. He realizes, whoa, wait a minute. The grandma might still be alive in there.
Sometimes it feels like Sam Levinson feels like he's pulling off a opening to Inglourious Bastards level of like tension dialogue, and it's just not there. Like that Little Red Riding Hood sequence, it wasn't subtle, it wasn't particularly captivating at the start. It was like, yeah, we get it, all right? Yeah, you're the hunter. What Hank Azaria is suggesting by telling that story, though, is that The point of that Red Riding Hood story was the actual ending where Red Riding Hood puts the rocks in the wolf's stomach. So then when the wolf tries to run off, it like mutilates itself and dies. The point of that was to suggest that Hank Azaria can embody the sort of masculine, macho, overly protective, violent nature that is very typical. But Jocelyn has it in her too, and she has a really mean, cruel streak, and she can make people suffer. And that Tedros should be just as scared as Hank, and that Tedros should be just as scared of Jocelyn as he would be of any other man that would come for him. I think that was what it was getting at.
So now's when the story gets really real. Because Little Red Riding Hood gets this brilliant idea. So the hunter, Little Red Riding Hood, take these big rocks and they stick it into the wolf's belly and they sew it closed. Okay? So when the wolf tries to run away, he fucking bleeds out right in front of them, just bang, drops dead on the floor.
Yeah, overall, I thought it was a really, really excellent episode. I thought all the characters came together. I must also touch on, I loved Xander being pulled in every direction. So in the last episode, Jocelyn was really upset with Tedros for fucking her over by getting someone else to take her song. So then Jocelyn invited her ex-boyfriend and basically cucked Tedros, right?
Honey guys in the world, you can have sex with him, won't ask you any questions. But they're not you.
And then Tedros goes, all right, you watch, and then gets Xander to essentially orchestrate a false Me Too accusation on that ex-boyfriend and get his movie deal fucked up.
I didn't rape anyone at Jocelyn's house. I didn't do this.
I know you're not a rapist. I know.
Yeah, okay, but I need Jocelyn to go on record and clear this up.
And now they both know this stuff about each other and it all comes out in like a really satisfying way. I love that whole sequence where like Jocelyn basically embarrasses him and like calls him out for orchestrating their first meetup at the club. That's like a really nice revelation that we're just getting now. And the way she kind of calls him out and embarrasses him and makes him look like a goofy fuckboy. And then Mike Dean's reaction just being like, man, that's such LA shit. It like kind of sums up the show at this point.
Yeah, and it was this whole fucking setup. This whole time, he had this crazy fucking plan, and it worked.
Fuck you, Jocelyn.
It worked.
It's super LA shit. Fuck you, Mike.
And I love the idea that initially when this show was coming out, everyone was like, oh, is The Weeknd's character meant to be cool? Oh, is Tedros meant to be cool? No, he's meant to be like a bit of a joke.
Fucking stretch that tiny little pussy.
Jesus Christ.
He doesn't feel like a really hot, sophisticated, sexy, smart, calculated guy anymore. He feels like a fucking idiot fuckboy that just does not understand anything around him. And yeah, I liked the turn that this show took. I think this last episode was just so much fun, and I think more people need to start admitting that, all right? There's nothing wrong with a show that has highly sexually provocative imagery and pokes fun at things that normally we wouldn't, all right? Like, it's satire, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it is satire, all right? Like that whole Me Too commentary with the ex-boyfriend, and they're like, oh, he's only in the movie for 5%. We'll digitally replace him. The lines about like, oh, you're just a TikTok C-word. Like, they're all just lines that are poking at the current cultural climate. And the show knows that. Everything that spills out of Eli Roth's mouth is intentionally provocative. The whole thing about, oh, we got all those journalists to walk out and they describe them as a bunch of R words. Like, they're in on the joke. They're in on the joke. All right? All of these people are meant to be awful in their own right, but I think as an audience, it is incredibly fun to watch. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see a season review, I might do one later this week, or I might do a deep dive into sort of the way this show has been discussed and critiqued. I would love if you could subscribe if you want more videos about The Idol. Let me know what other shows you want me to talk about. Thank you so much for watching.